She likes tin toys. She likes uh, kind of eccentric things. She likes uh, old toys. She likes Barbies, yo-yos, but not just any yo-yo. It's got to be an old, certain type. Let's see what other things that really gets her excited.
What do you think about the gumball machine?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. It
Ones I
depends.
have are
Yeah,
about that wide and that high.
and they're old. How old are they?
Yeah, Jesse was the one that gave them to me back
Yeah,
then.
she would be into. She would like something like that. Now, uh, we finally got something. We got a. Uh, it was a about this size. It was a kind of like a pinball thing. It was a toy from Wolverine here in Booneville. We found one of those at a store, and she liked that. We, uh,
I think she had got these at Walmart at one time,
hmm
but it's been back maybe the
yeah,
90s or
yeah,
maybe even late 80s.
yeah. I think the thing she got from Wolverine Toy is made in the '70s. So I don't know when they started here in Booneville, uh, but yeah, anything like that she would be into. But yeah, she's got a variety of things. She's got some old medicine jars. Some of them still have stuff in them.
With
She's got,
corks on the top,
huh?
with wooden corks on the top of them.
She don't have any that's got wooden, but they're right after the wooden face. She's got one drug that's it's it was a drug before they had the electroshock treatment for mental patients, and it would actually throw you into a seizure. Which, anyway, doesn't seem like a good idea, but she's got a medicine that's what it's used for. Uh, Still had some in it, so but
I had a bunch of old medicine bottles
mm-hmm.
stored up in a storage building there at the house, and the boys got a hold of them and broke them all up.
No. Uh, she likes a lot of old Disney stuff, especially Mickey Mouse stuff that's older, and so she likes stuff like that. But she's got a good eye for things. She doesn't buy anything if it's overpriced. So she knows what the going rate should be, and anything that's too much, she won't buy it. Yeah. She can get it online cheaper. She's not going to buy it at a store, yeah. Unless it's within the reason of the shipping cost. But
You know, I get where I do that. They're going to tractor supply stuff, pay a lot of money. You get a lot cheaper through the mail.
a lot of things you can. You can really you just got to kind of know what you're doing, and
Their taxes about as high as the product.
mhm. Well, okay, we are up and
I
going
got a good friend, manager of it.
now. One of these days, if we ever get done with some of these things, I would like to. My mom, uh, we need some new cabinets, but she gave us this beautiful curio cabinet that's got curved glass and it's tall. It's got a light inside it. But she left me had a bunch of carnival glass, and so got quite a bit of that. I don't know if that's that stuff. It's kind of almost iridescent at times. It's kind of got all these multiple colors and stuff. Um, and so, um, only thing is, I probably should have bought a lot a few years ago because it was you could find it at any antique store and it was dirt cheap. And now the prices have all went up. So good news is what I have is worth more. But bad news is I may have missed my opportunity to add to my collection. Uh, she's got a lot of things though. But yeah, there's not much she doesn't like. But it's more she likes a lot of vintage. Her dream house, Izzy's dream house, and just she wants a house where she can decorate it as a 1970s house. and she wants the furniture of the 70s, the carpet of the 70s. She wants it all to look like the 70s, but brand new. And so there's a store in Fayetteville, vintage something. I think it's the address, and that's what they have. But they have the really nice stuff. I mean, it was like, you know, because I lived in the 70s, you know, and it's like they've got like the stuff that rich people had in the 70s, and it looks pristine. And of course, they're selling it for, they're selling like couches and tables for $2,000, but you can't get it anymore. It's like, you know, it's, but anyway, that's what she would like her house to be.
Replace
And
that on something like
yeah,
that.
and she wants all these, like I say, she's got all these Barbie dolls, and she's got all these other stuff, and she wants to have room. Her house will look like if she's able to do that one day, it's going to look like no, it's going to look like a antique store. Like you go to these antique stores now, all these. That's what her house is going to look like inside. You're going to have the Barbie area. You're going to have the tin toy area. She likes pool toys, old pool toys, and so anyway, so
Have you got any old records?
she hasn't really gotten into
I
that.
think that
Yeah,
it's 33 or 78.
78 was the OG, the old ones. Yeah, we have seen some stuff. I think her budget doesn't get some of those things. So yeah, yeah, it's so she always got a budget, and of course usually it's $5. But you'd be amazed what you can find sometimes for $5 at one of them. Every now and then they don't know what they've got. They'll price it a lot lower. And that's stuff we look for. It's not the high dollar stuff.
Mother had stack. I mean, had records like that, the old big ones.
Hmm.
Getting the KCTL over there.
Well, records are back in style now. They
I've got
about went dead. Now people have revived them. Yeah.
I've got copies of every type of record that they made back then. The
Yeah.
round ones that
Yeah.
had on the
Yeah. Well, anyway, she's into bird watching now, so she's wanting to get some binoculars and start doing. Okay, well, we're actually streaming, and we are. I know it's been a while since we've been here, and hopefully, um, let's see here. Choose the right one. There we go. Okay. Um, but anyway, we've not been able to be here for a while, and that's largely my fault. But we will. Let's see here. Okay, we are going to be at um, Second Chronicles chapter 26. Now, Okay, so in next week I will start. I'm going to have some stuff I'm working on, uh, and we will start veering off. We're going to get to the prophets. So, you have the minor prophets and the major prophets, and the major prophets being Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and Daniel. Okay, of course, Jeremiah also wrote Lamentations. But why are they called major prophets and the others called minor prophets?
Mostly the length of the book.
Mostly the length and the consequence of the book. In other words, how important are the events? So um, I think a lot of it has to do. So for example, Zechariah is just as long as the book of Daniel, but Zechariah is a minor prophet. Daniel's a major prophet. Now, part of that has to do with the fact that Daniel's work is consequential. It covers some predictive prophecy. Zechariah does too, to a degree, but Zechariah covers a very narrow time frame. So even though it's 12 chapters, it's written during a very narrow time frame window. Daniel spans over 70 years. And so I think that's part of it too, is the length and the depth of what they cover. You look at Ezekiel, you look at Isaiah, they covered Jeremiah, they covered a long time frame of events that took place in Israel, whereas most of the minor prophets, they are over an isolated event usually. Think of like the book of Jonah, minor prophet. Jonah deals just with his being called to go to Nineveh, and he refuses and gets swallowed by the great fish. But that's a very short lived uh, consequence of that took place. So most of the minor prophets deal with a very short window of time. The major prophets, they all deal with, you know, 50, 60, 70 years plus. So it has to do a lot with that. So you would expect them to be longer as well. Now, uh, what may surprise you is not all of them are in chronological order. In fact, the minor prophets, they're all over the place. And where I wrote some things down. So, anyone want to take a guess what the uh, earliest uh, prophet that has a book in the Bible? And I'm including major and minor prophets here. So, anyone take a guess which one is the oldest?
Isaiah.
Isaiah. Isaiah is not a bad guess. It is the oldest of the major prophets, but it's only the sixth oldest prophet book. So that tells you it's a minor prophet. Obadiah is generally considered the oldest. And Obadiah we'll be getting to pretty soon, and we'll start kind of conveying where those events take place. Joel is actually second. And Joel, we're familiar with Joel because of its prophecy that's fulfilled in the book of Acts, Acts 2. Then you get books like Jonah. Jonah is actually a fairly old book because it deals with Nineveh before, and that stuff before some of the events happen later on. Uh, and those are 782. Then you get Amos, 758 BC. You get, let's see, Hosea, 755 BC. And then you get Isaiah. But Isaiah has about, more than 100 years, 120 years on the rest of the major prophets. So it's important you will understand the prophets better by being able to put them in where they're at. Now, Isaiah, unlike probably any of the other prophets, he has such a integral relationship with Hezekiah, the good King Hezekiah, as he's generally known. And part of that is Hezekiah, uh, they overlap. And in fact, sometimes you can read stuff, in Chronicles or Kings that deals with Hezekiah, and it is almost word for word repeated in the book of Isaiah. So they have a similar time frame together. So while these do that, Malachi is by most considered the, uh, I guess, the oldest or the newest of the Old Testament books. It was written, a little over 400 years before the birth of Christ. Now, uh, what gets into this, though, is you also have books like Ezra, Nehemiah, and even Esther. And those books are not really all that old either. Ezra, a little bit older than Nehemiah. Nehemiah goes pretty far. And then you have like Esther, which is somewhere in that time frame as well. And you have Malachi. So those four books are within probably 100 years of one another: Ezra, Nehemiah, Esther, and Malachi. And so as a result, they have similar themes to a certain degree. So anyway, a lot of this is uh, important. Book of Daniel, it spans, a very consequential time from the time they're taken into captivity for the first time to the time that they start to go home. And so all these books, it's important to, I think, to really appreciate them, you need to have a general idea of when they fit, where they fit. And so these prophets, we're going to start actually breaking away and talking about the prophet, because we will understand what they were prophesying about and who they were prophesying to. Because most of these minor prophets, they either prophesied to the northern kingdom or the southern kingdom. And there was very much different things going on in the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. Uh, so that is what we'll start next week. Today we're going to talk about Uzziah or Uzziah, depending on how you want to say it. But Amaziah, was another king of Judah that starts off good and ended bad. And Uzziah is going to be similar. And so, in fact, it's going to say in 2 Chronicles 26:1, and all the people of Judah took Uzziah, who was 16 years old, and made him king instead of his father Amaziah. Now, there's apparently some time frame that's lost in here, or not lost, but so Amaziah, you remember, it didn't end bad; it ended badly for him, and he's kind of like somewhat exiled, captive for a while before he dies, and it may have been as much as 11 years. I don't know, but anyway, so during this interim, even before he dies, apparently Uzziah is made king at the young age of 16. He built Eloth and restored it to Judah after the king slept with his father. So uh, he didn't do a lot probably when he was 16 years old, but after his father did die, that's when he kind of started doing things. Uzziah was 16 years old when he began to reign. He reigned 52 years in Jerusalem. Uh, that might be the longest reigning king of all of them. That was a long time. Um, his mother's name was Jechaliah of Jerusalem, and did what was right in the eyes of the Lord according to all that his father Amaziah had done. What did we say about Amaziah? And we just read, was Amaziah a good king? You can go back, and chapter 25 says Amaziah was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 29 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Jehoaddan of Jerusalem, and he did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, yet not with a whole heart. And then he started doing idolatry by verse 14. So what does this really mean? They did right in what the eyes of the Lord. And in fact, Joash, kind of similar thing. Joash did what was right in the eyes of the Lord until his kind of the guy that raised him died, and then he kind of, you know, when Jehoiada died, Joash went astray, and so Amaziah did start out good and then went astray. So Uzziah is saying he did what was in the right eye according to all his father did. Well, it's a good start, but in life, it's not how you start, is it? And so Uzziah is going to have some of the same problems. Now, he's going to reign a long time. So sometimes that's because he probably didn't do a lot. He didn't cause conflict, but doesn't mean he was a good king in the sense. Once again, we say good king, we're not talking about the prosperity of Israel or Judah, although a lot of times that was dependent on how righteous they were. We're talking about, were they righteous men? Were they good spiritual leaders? And there were really very few that would qualify for that from beginning to end. And so Uzziah starts right, but that's not the way it is. Uh,
Didn't I have a problem with him not getting rid of idols?
well, yeah, most of these that were somewhat soft, they didn't quite completely go all the way.
Yeah.
So that was many of them. Some of them though still stayed okay to the end, but that was a sign of they weren't as strong as they should have been. Now, uh, there's other things involved. This is mainly dealing with the um spiritual side. The Bible's not going to deal a lot with other things. It deals with the historical, but that's not the focus of what was written down. So, there might have been political upheaval. There might have been a lot of enemies. They may have had, uh, you know, people that were trying to usurp them from the throne. And unless it was pivotal in their spirituality, Scripture probably doesn't record that. So it could be that uh, he didn't have the power. Because you notice what happens when a king does remove the high places. And then you have another king. What tends to happen, it seems like, every time? All of a sudden they pop back up, don't they? So what does that tell you? That the king could, the king as a man of power, he could do it, but the people's heart weren't in not having the high places for idol worship. So the problem wasn't necessarily the king in removing them or not; it was the people's hearts, and that's where that's what really led to the captivity. Kings had a role in it, but ultimately the people themselves are the ones that turned their eyes on God. Uh, says he set himself to seek God in the days of Zechariah. Now we don't know who this Zechariah is. It's a common name. It's not the Zechariah of the prophets. And the reason we can say that is because that Zechariah wrote his work around 520 BC. This is still in the 800s. And so, so it's not that Zechariah. But, that's not too uncommon. I mean, a lot of people are named the same name. But what can we say about this Zechariah? Well, he was obviously a godly man. Who instructed him to fear the Lord, and as long as he sought the Lord, God made him prosper. I think, a lot of times we think of that as prosper from the standpoint of riches, but, lives work so much better. When everything is clicking and we are uh, doing what's right, serving God, our lives tend to prosper, not from just a financial standpoint, and a lot of times it don't from a financial standpoint, but from a living standpoint. You're doing what's right. Kids are in church. Uh, you got friends that are also like minded. I mean, there is so much more to being prosperous in this life than monetary things. I know we, we've been through a lot of things lately, but uh, we've had so many people from the congregation that have helped out, uh, prayers, other things, and are generally concerned about our situation, and that's what you would expect in a church format. And so, uh, but there are people in this world, they face so much all alone. They've got themselves. They're kind of like the prodigal son before he decided to return. They don't really have true friends. They don't have good people that keep an eye on them. They struggle. Uh, whether it's financial or not, they struggle from a standpoint of when they have needs, whatever it may be, there's no one that actually cares about them that helps them. And to me, that is a sad existence. It doesn't matter how much money you have if you don't have the love and support of good people with you. It doesn't mean that much. And so, you know, why would you leave this situation? Well, because, like I say, there are other things involved. And so the king prospered, but, you know, have you ever noticed that a lot of people that really have a lot of money, do they ever just say, that's it. I'm going to stop. I'm just going to park it in the bank and never worry about making another cent. There's a lot of people that I want to tell you, if you have more than, $1 million, $2 million in the bank and your bills are paid, you don't really need another dime in your life. You can live just fine. Okay. But most people that get really wealthy, do they stop? It's like they can't stop. They just can't stop. Yeah.
Politicians don't.
Well, no one does. I mean, very few people do because, uh, that's they get drawn into this. They want more. I knew a guy, and he was a good guy, but I tell you what, of course, he had retired, but he had,
Jim,
yes.
you there?
Oh, well, you got to keep going then. Yeah. 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 Well, but wait. Let me ask a question now. If I asked Betty to show me her purse, would it have some money in it?
That I don't know.
Yeah. See, that's. I think that
The
might be a
hidden,
marriage thing. Yeah.
the hidden fact.
It's a back. Hey, well, I'll tell you a story. A guy named Melvin Cargill, and he was a character. He had a landscaping business before he retired, and he had his backyard was just it was like a garden you'd go pay money to go see. And anyway, he had a situation when his business was going really good, and he did everything he thought was legal, and anyway, he had an accountant that had messed up on his taxes one year, and just didn't do them right, and so uh, IRS came and they took all the money he had in the bank. They'd saved up for years, and he's like, that just didn't seem right. They could just take all this money. It wasn't my fault. The accountant, do something to him. And so anyway, so then he decided he would keep his money in the bank, or at least his big money. And so he would take a big mason jar. He would take a Ziploc bag, put money in it, zip it up, put it in the jar, dig a hole, and put it in the backyard. I said, well, how do you know where that at? He said, I can smell it. So anyway, could or couldn't, but that's what he did. For years, he would put money in the backyard. He'd dig a hole, put it in a mason jar inside a Ziploc bag, and so that money's fine. It's not going to get anything. And that's what he did. Well, the joke, though, and everybody thought it was funny. So it's not funny what he got, but yet, he had a good sense of humor about things. He came down with Alzheimer's when he got in the 70s. And everybody was like, man, I want to buy that property whenever you die. You probably got money still in the yards there back there, it's dug in the holes, and you just have forgot about it by now. But anyway, each their own. I said, some people put it on a mattress. He put it in his yard. And, uh, but anyway, because he didn't trust the government anymore. They were going to come take his money, so he decided he'd just bury it in the ground.
You know where the Crude Bag store is? Magazine,
Uh-uh.
hardware.
Yeah.
There used to be a guy named Lee Jones. He
Uh-huh.
didn't believe in the bank. He's put his money in different places. So
Yeah.
come in there like $100 bill. We're going to go stretch it. You get on that ladder. You go around there with what jar, what got money in it, and stuff. Come back here and make it. He would come up here. I was a kid. I'd watch him around. He
Well,
had that ladder around.
he was a singer, comedian, country, String Bean. It was his stage name. Uh, he lived close to where my parents lived in that part of Tennessee, and at the time, he got robbed. Because he didn't like banks,
That's
and
why he got killed.
yeah, and so everybody heard that he didn't like banks. So and he made a good living. He was on the Opry, he was on the Hee Haw and other things. And he made a lot of money. And so two boys, two fellows, they came and robbed him,
nephews or cousins.
and they wound up shooting him because they couldn't find any money. And everybody's like, well, I know he had money because he was really tight. He had nothing new. He never bought. And so, it was like a mystery for about 20 years. And about 20 years later, somebody bought that property and they were just going to totally remodel it because it wasn't, they started tearing down the walls. He had hidden the money inside the walls and drywalled over it. But by the time it was found, of course, the thing had leaked because it was vacant for a long time. And so all that money was just rotten, useless. But they estimate it was, close to $2 million. Yeah. Just inside the walls. Of course, it was probably good insulation. But
Wow.
yeah. And so,
Didn't his wife get killed too?
yeah,
Yep.
they both got killed. So no one knew where the money was. And it was inside. Literally, he had closed it up inside all these walls of the house. And so you weren't going to find it unless you knew that's where he done it.
That was up in the northern part of Arkansas, northeast.
No, it was in Tennessee. It was
Tennessee.
in Tennessee, up on not too far from Springfield, Tennessee. It was kind of out.
Arkansas.
No, well, he was, but that's where he lived. Yeah, that's where he lived. And so, you don't get to take it with you. That was, So anyway, but anyway, where were we? Okay, so
He was a good friend of Grandpa John.
he was.
Just think how mad he'd have been if he'd lived 20 years more and then found that money or dug the money out because he needed it.
Well,
He was responsible.
well, the people that killed him, I mean, they're still alive as far as I know. They were fairly young when they did it. I mean, they're not young now, but anyway, because that was in the
Yeah.
mid
They may
'70s.
be dead now.
Still in jail.
Yeah, oh yeah, they're not getting out. Yeah, you kill two people, you don't get out. Like you don't get death penalty, but it wasn't kind of, yeah. So anyway, Zachariah was a good guy. He instructed him, and so as long as Zachariah was alive, seemed like we've heard this before. Jehoiada and Joash. So a lot of times that happens. Someone that's close to. I've seen it a couple of ways. A person dies, and that person that was mentored, they just lose track. Then I've also seen it where, and this is where to me, you've got a lot of responsibility if you're a leader in the church, an elder, deacon, preacher. I've seen people go astray when a preacher does some things they shouldn't, because they had built them up so much, and then they find out they're not what they thought they were, or an elder that falls away. That, and we shouldn't do this, but a lot of times it just does happen because you build them up so much that when they're, something happens, it tends to cause a problem. It says he went out, verse 6, and made war against the Philistines and broke into the wall of Gath and the wall of Jabneh and the wall of Ashdod. That's some of the big cities of Philistia. And he built cities in the territory of Ashdod and elsewhere among the Philistines. God helped him. So was he doing what was right at this time? Okay. Yeah, God helped him against the Philistines and against the Arabians who lived in Gerbal, Baal, and against the Meunites. The Amorites paid tribute to Uzziah, and fame spread even to the border of Egypt, where he became very strong. Moreover, Uzziah built towers in Jerusalem at the corner gate and the valley gate, at the angle, and fortified them. He built towers in the wilderness and cut out many cisterns, and where he had large herds, both in the Shephelah and in the plain. And he had farmers and vine dressers in the hills and the fertile lands, for he loved the soil. Moreover, Uzziah had an army of soldiers fit for war in divisions according to the numbers in the muster made by Jael, the secretary, and Maaseiah, the officer, under the direction of Hananiah, one of the king's commanders. The whole number of the heads of the fathers' houses of mighty men of valor was 2,600. Under their command was an army of 307,500 who could make war with the mighty power to help the king against the enemy. And Uzziah prepared for all the army shields, spears, helmets, coats of mail, bows, and stones for slinging. In Jerusalem, he made machines invented by skillful men to be on the towers and the corners, to shoot arrows and great stones, and his fame spread far, for he was marvelously helped till he was strong. So, wonder why we don't know of Uzziah more. If I asked you if you knew anything about Uzziah, what would you say? Have said before today? Not a lot, would you? But he was a very powerful king. Things went really well. And what tends to happen, though, when things go really well? So when things aren't going well, who do we typically turn to?
How long they been fighting each other?
Well, this is the people he's fighting against here really probably are not the same people that fight today. So
And that country a lot older than the United States.
you're talking about Israel?
Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah. But
Why the United States over there fighting them? They know how to fight a lot more than
well, they're very small compared to the people that are. They're the only democracy in that area, and they're typically the good guys in the Middle East. But they the others are typically not people we would really associate normally. They are dictators. They are tyrants in a way. But some of them are getting better, and hopefully they'll continue to do that. But needless to say, what tends to happen when things are bad, who do we turn to? Turn to God. When things are good, what can sometimes happen? I got here because of what I did, and we think too highly of ourselves and not give the credit to God. And this has been the case. I mean, even people like David, kind of happened to David. He was getting older, and they said, "Don't go out to war with us." There was a season of war back in those days, and so he stayed. That's when he was bored, and he looked out and sees Bathsheba, and all that occurred, and even him trying to cover it up because he was this powerful, well-liked king, and so he could cover up anything. Now he would repent of his pride and arrogance in that, but we'll see what Uzziah does. It says in verse 16, but when he was strong, he grew proud. You're right, Larry. To his destruction. For he was unfaithful to the Lord his God, entered the temple of the Lord to burn incense on the altar of incense. Okay, so he gets proud. He gets to thinking he's more than what he is. So he became unfaithful. So now is he a good king or a bad king? From a spiritual standpoint. He's a bad king. He's unfaithful. And now he's entering the temple of the Lord to burn incense. Before we read any further, why is that problematic? That's the priest's job. Yes. In fact, he wasn't even supposed to be where the incense was. So, he's thinking more highly of himself than he is. And starts off good. God gave him all this stuff and blessed him with it. And then he turns back. Now, we know people like that. Things go well for them, and they begin to thinking, like I say, because of what I did, because of who I am. I don't really need God for this. I'm fine. So anyway, but Azariah, in verse 17, the priest went in after him with 80 priests of the Lord who were men of valor, and they withstood King Uzziah and said to him, it is not for you, Uzziah, to burn incense to the Lord, but for the priests, the sons of Aaron, who are consecrated to burn incense. Go out of the sanctuary, for you have done wrong, and it will bring you no honor from the Lord God. Then Uzziah was angry. Why would the king be angry? Did he tell him a lie? Was that not the truth? Was that not what's in the law of Moses? So why would the king be angry at what he told him?
And he felt like he was in a position to do what he wanted to.
Yeah, yeah. You know, people sometimes, high enough position or whatever, they don't like being told no. Privileged people a lot of times don't like
I'm
being
that
told.
way.
You're like that way? Yeah. Well, it's a good thing.
Ready to change it.
Yeah. But it's true. You know, people privileged, they don't like being told, no, you can't have that. You can't do that. Uh, and so he's angry. Uh, so Uzziah was angry. Now he had a censer in his hand to burn incense, and when he became angry with the priest, leprosy broke out on his forehead in the presence of the priest in the house of the Lord by the altar of incense. Well, you know anything? Leprosy is basically a broad term for skin diseases. Some of them are a lot more severe than others. Most of them are contagious of some type, but yet, some of them are more nuisance than they are necessarily going to kill you or debilitate you in other ways. But in that area, in that day, especially under the law of Moses, if you had leprosy and it didn't go away, what would happen to you? You're unclean, you'd be separated. So, verse 20, it says, And Azariah the chief priest and all the priests looked at him. Behold, he was leprous on his forehead. And they rushed him out quickly. And he himself hurried to go out because the Lord had struck him. He wasn't clean. They didn't get him out. He was in the temple. He was in the holy place, not the most holy place, but he's in the holy place. And they had to get him out. He was unclean. And King Uzziah was a leper to the day of his death. And being a leper, lived in a separate house, for he was excluded from the house of the Lord. And Jotham, his son, was over the king's household, governing the people of the land. So he has leprosy. He's forced to live isolated in a separate place. He's not even allowed to govern because no one can come around him. Now, the rest of the acts of Uzziah, from the first to last, Isaiah the prophet, son of Amoz, wrote. That's interesting. And let's just see.
I think he was having second thoughts about what he
Oh, I don't know.
was
I don't know. It's too late. I doubt he fully repented, though, because if he'd fully repented, God may have taken the leprosy away. So I doubt he fully repented.
I was curious if he was thinking he was in the wrong.
Yeah. So you want to know when this is? This is roughly about 740 BC. And how do I know that? If you go to Isaiah chapter 1, it says, The vision of Isaiah, the son of Amoz, which he saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem in the days of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Judah. So Isaiah's first of his dealing with that. Now we're more familiar with the Hezekiah part, but Uzziah. Now once again, I don't know. You know, Uzziah may have been this king in name only at this time and just not dead yet. But anyway, Isaiah writes about this. So when you start off with Isaiah, you're going to see that time frame. And so Isaiah, like the first heading say the wickedness of Judah. And so we can see this, and we can see why he would talk about that. And so anyway, so it begins to fit, why these prophets were brought up to prophesy at these times. Uh, So anyway, and Uzziah slept with his fathers, and they buried him with his fathers in the burial field that belonged to the kings, for they said he is a leper. And Jotham his son reigned in his place. So uh, anyway, so we see this, and we're going to start veering off, like I say, to the prophets, and see. Uh, it's been a long time that they've been on this trajectory. Now they've had, these smaller miscellaneous prophets that have come by and rebuked them for doing things, but now we're going to have God inspiring these prophets to write things. And so we're going to go through some of these, and we'll see that God wasn't silent during this time when the people were going drifted further and further away. Even this is Judah, remember. Israel was even much less. And so all this is going to explain. But what we're going to see is God gives the people over and over opportunity to change. And yet they don't change. And so we're going to see visibly demonstrated the long suffering God, that he waited a long time. According to the law of Moses, he said that the captivity and all these things would happen if they went astray. But God waited a while before he actually caused this to happen. And so it builds and builds, and he gives them opportunity and opportunity. Okay,